Hello there. Yes, Fiona here again from Weekly Sewing Bee. So this week's video I'm going to make a denim style skirt out of canvas. Now I know it's big in Europe, you know, this cartoon stuff. This one's actually magazine print and it's lovely thick canvas and it sews just like denim. So that's how I'm going to do it. Okay, bear with me and I hope you enjoy the videos. Thank you. So hello there. Okay, so today we are making a start on a skirt. Now, I found this piece of material in a shop and it's quite expensive and it's literally canvas. And I wanted it, which happens when you go shopping for fabric. But obviously, what on earth could I do with it? So I am going to make a denim inspired skirt out of canvas so that I can make use of this. Now this piece of cloth is, I would say, 1 yard and a third. It's a metre, so because we sell our fabrics in metres here. So I know it's wide enough lengthwise to go round me, as it were, but only just. So I'm basically going to do the pattern accordingly. Now, because I'm going to do it as a front buttoned skirt, I can cut along the bottom to make the line down the front of the buttons, and I can cut the waistband as well, and I have enough fabric for that. So I need to decide the length as well. Now I want it 3/4 of a length, so probably, because I'm quite sure, it's going to be 1 yard long. So I don't want it any more than that. And if it was 35 inches, I was dripping over it, so I definitely don't want it that long. So what I've got here is a block pattern that I drew a couple of weeks ago, and I drew it around some skirts and I took some measurements as well. So I can make use of this and continue using it. So I am literally just copying the line off the pattern, off the block pattern, and I am using baking parchment just to go around the side. Now the length, we decided that I didn't want it any longer than 35 because I'd trip over it, but I think I want it 30 inches. And then because we're designing it ourselves, there's no reason why we can't choose the length, is there? No reason at all. So that's that. Quite a simple part, really. I now have my pattern for the skirt, which is going to be quite easy because it's literally straight down. Now I've folded the fabric into 4, and I need the straight line of this pattern that I've just done for the back, and I need the front cut into 2 halves. So what I'm going to do is literally cut the back and then cut the front part, one of the panels, into 2. So quite simple, very, very simple actually. And I feel that I'm making the most use of the pattern because it's the pattern that I like, and that's why I chose the fabric. But we always have that problem, don't we, that, you know, if we see a pattern, we have to use the material for the right sort of item of clothing, because this would look silly as a summer dress, it just wouldn't work. And in fact, I think the only thing you can use it is denim inspired stuff, really, because it is, if anything, as close to denim as you're going to get. So get this all cut out. put it around that way, I'll be able to see better. Now, although this is the standard 60 centimetres in depth, it does have quite a large pattern adjustment on the side here. So I have to take that into account when I'm, because I can't use that. But it's nice, it's got all the washing instructions and the repeating and everything, the pattern repeating, so. Lovely. So I'm just cutting in, I suppose, a dart for the back. And if it does seem, if it is too tight, then what I will do is I was going to make a seam along the end, a rib for the buttons, but I can always make a rib as well for the buttonholes, just to give it that extra inch that I might need. So I have the back there, and then all I have to do is cut a line in the front, so I'll have these 3 panels. And of course I've buried my scissors. Now I know that the strip along the bottom is actually going to go right to left rather than up to down, and with heavier fabric I find that you don't really have to pin it because it's heavy enough to stay in the same position that I left it. I can literally put it down and it's not going to slide around the table, so I don't even feel the need to use a weight or anything. So that's great. I've got my 3 bits of fabric and I've got my band for my buttons, which literally is just going to be folded over, and then I can sew that on. Now I haven't cut this to size, I've just left it as long as the strip. It's a bad habit, it really is, but it's a habit I do have, so. Okay, I'm going to get the machine set up, so bear with me, and then we can start sewing. So I've got my machine out. I've decided to use probably an indigo coloured thread, or as close to that as I can get. Now the choices I suppose I had was I could use white, it was mainly white, or grey would, but what I've chosen to do is use a colour that stands out and to do the stitches as part of the design. So I have these with the inside facing inside, because I'm going to sew a line and then I'm going to fold it over and then sew a line again, so that I've got that proper denim double stitching. Now what I've done to do that is I've lined these up so that there's a good half an inch in between, and then all I have to do is I have to line it up with the foot and follow the line so that it's as straight as possible. And I'm going to make use of the line of the foot along the edge of the first line of seams. Now because this fabric weighs more as well than normal fabric, I have to make sure that I don't pull it by letting the weight of the fabric come down. Now I suppose it takes a bit of practice, but in a way it's no different from sewing a normal hem, because when you're sewing a normal hem, you choose the line on the machine and you stick to that line. All I'm doing is I'm choosing a line and using the foot as a line, so that I am quite close to the edge. The thing about this though is you need to make sure that your cutting lines are straight. If you have any flaky bits, then whereas if you're doing a normal flat sew, you can sort of cover it up, or you can just ignore it and then just carry on sewing around it. But with this, you need your cutting completely straight. So I'm just having a closer look here. We have the 1/2 inch of the back one, and then we literally all the way down we have quite a perfect line. Now the other way to do it is to match the cloth up together and then to sew them, and then to trim it and then sew it. I find that rather tedious. So now what I've done is I flattened the cloth out, and I'm taking the longer flap and I'm folding it round. Now this sits quite neatly and using itself as a guide, and once I put the foot down on the machine, then I've got like a third hand so that I can make sure that I can fold this. Now the other way of doing it is pins and an iron. This would iron very well and you'd be able to keep your line straight that way. Although I think because it's quite hard canvas, it's going to be fine without it. So now I'm using the foot again as my guideline, and the rigidity of this means that I can't push it too far in because it's just got nowhere to go. It'd have to fold over again. So in a way I'm treating it a bit more like paper or cardboard. Now because we've sewn the dart in as well, it does make it a bit more tricky, but we just have to make sure that we pull the fabric out and tuck the fabric as far in as it would go. So I'm continuing to use that line of stitches, and because I've chosen to make the stitches visible, and I don't need to, I could just tuck it in like a normal hem, then you have to keep them straight. If you're going to keep them visible, you're going to have to keep them straight. So one thing I have noticed, that the weight of the fabric will then push them together. So really what you can't afford to do is you can't afford to have any push of the fabric down so that it twists, because obviously that will show again. So yes, it's taking time. If you're uncomfortable, try it on a scrap bit of cloth. That would be excellent. But yeah, it can be done just like this. Now if you're working in an industrial setting, then there'd be a special machine. So it is really it's a home sewer's skill. Nobody else can do this. It's only you guys that can do this. So just adjusting it. You can see that the natural weight of the cloth is pushing it together, so we have to just sort of hold it out and keep this tight. Lovely. I'm going to do a couple of reverse stitches because I can. So we just have a closer look for you. Just hold this up. Lovely. So there we have the 2 lines of stitches. Maybe I could have done it even a darker colour so you can see it. And then from the back you can see that there's no loose ends. Everything is just tucked in. And with a wash and an iron that will just lie flat anyway. So that's that side done. I do need to put the other front panel on the other side. I have to make sure that I keep the cloth so that the dart is at the top and also the pictures are at the top. And I need to have both the right sides facing outwards. Now, I think if you were to buy a skirt, you would have the... Oh, this is what I mean by flaky bits. You see where I've caught it? Yeah, if that was on the side, then I'd have to trim that before I started. You would have the rear facing forward. I'm going to find that quite difficult on this sewing machine because it's not got a very big hole here. So I'm going to have them just following round. Yeah, and I think it's only a thing that some people would notice. Probably I would notice if I'd sewn it, but I wouldn't notice if I'd have bought it. I would never have looked. So I'm just going to make sure that everything is in line, because what I don't want is these double stitches to be quite thick. Now the cartoon panels are completely in fashion at the moment. You'll see loads of people wearing them, loads of women wearing them. They are literally the height of fashion in Europe. And I could have gone for a canvas with cartoons on, although I went for, I think, a bit more mature cartoon. These are like magazine panels. So distinctive. It's definitely going to be one of a kind type of skirt, but kind of bang on trend. And the nice thing about designing it around a denim skirt as well is, although denim comes in and out of fashion, it doesn't really change as fashion. You know, you can keep a denim skirt and carry on wearing it for years. So there we go, we just opened it up again, and it's a matter of folding that round so that the understitch is sewing, and then just tucking it in. And because of the weight of the fabric, you know, there's like a definite, it tucks in that far and then it stops. Okay, and I'm using my foot again as a guide, and I'm literally just sewing round. I put the excess cloth, this piece and the pattern, just over there on the bed, on the pillows, and there's been a bit of a landslide, so if you wonder what that noise was, it was just because I just put that out of the way so I can get on with sewing. So we are coming up to the bottom. And I'm going to sew on the button. I suppose in a way it would be for strengthening. We would have a strip like that for strengthening. Obviously we don't need that nowadays because we don't wear clothes till they fall apart, but I'm still going to do it because I know it'll give me that extra inch on the waist. So that's that. Now I'm going to trim the bottom. I can see that it's not level. I'm not going to worry. Now I have no idea whether I should be doing this right to left or left to right. Do you know, sometimes I just don't worry about it. So I'm just going to lop that off. And I'm going to sew it and then fold it over and then top sew it. So I need it, the strip, facing forward so that it will go like that. So, and I could have even given myself enough cloth there, a bit wider. So, but this is how you would sew a waistband on, so it's not too complicated. And what I've done is I've just inched it out, and I have probably, well, I would say 0.5 millimetre showing the back cloth so that I know that it's going straight. And if you do have trouble remembering which way round cloth should be sewn when you're doing, because it's so programmed into us that we have the right side to the right side. Just write it down on a post-it note, it's fine. It's your brain, it's telling you that, you know, no, what are you doing? So I have terrible trouble with it, and you know, throughout the videos you'll see me stop and think, how should I be putting the sleeves in, which way round and everything. So that's then done, and I have both the right sides facing upwards, and I am going to pull this round, and I am going to fold it over and then sew again, and I'm going to put the cloth under, and I'm going to feel with my fingers the seam that I did before. Although this is a standard foot, you can buy special foots that have like ridges under them, and then you could line it up that way. So when I started then, I just literally pushed the top layer of cloth forward. Now if I'd have carried on sewing and try and rectify it whilst I was sewing, I would have ended up with a twist in the button panel, and I really wouldn't want that. So I'm holding it tight, I'm folding it over, and I'm using this old seam as like balance. Now, yeah, you know, you have a favourite type of material that you like to sew. I quite enjoy sewing thicker material. I find it very easy. Yeah, you put it somewhere and it stays there. One thing I would say, although I'm using a standard needle, you can get denim needles, and these are stronger. The only difference is that they're made of stronger metal. Now you can see that it's not struggling at all. It's not even a new needle that's sharp or anything. It's just literally a standard needle. It's done many hours. I can't remember when I last changed my needle. It's having no problem, so. But then if it was having a problem, then yes, I would change the needle to a denim needle. So you can see here that it is twisting slightly. I'm sure I'll be able to sort that out with a good iron. And now if I was to pin it every 3 inches or so, then that would have stopped that, because of it would twist up to the pin, and then it would be right again. I'm quite near the bottom, so I'm literally just going to carry on sewing and sort it out later. But it's not a nice look to have something twisted, it really isn't. So. Now I know that I didn't cut it to size. I suppose there is more cloth here than I could have used. You know, it's kind of like, is that scrap going to be big enough to be used with this scrap? And I suppose maybe I could have cut it properly, but I didn't. And in fact, I rarely do. I'm terribly naughty. So now what we've got is we've got one continuous piece of material, and I'm going to sneeze. Excuse me, I'm going to carry on. Yeah, it's quite early in the morning here, you see, and if I get hay fever in the morning, then I'll sneeze 3 times and I won't stop till I do something about it. So now we have to decide where we're going to place our buttonholes on here. Now I'm on a machine that can do buttonholes, But what I do need to do is I need these buttonholes to be the same size, and I need them to be spaced properly. I can guess it, of course, but I'm actually going to use this skirt as sort of, well, just sort of picking the kids up from school sort of thing. So I am going to need these to be correct and even. Now the way to do it, I can cut a bit of paper and use that as a marker, so that this end would be the size that I want the buttonholes to be, and the length of it would be the gap of how far I would like a button. Now I do have 12 matching buttons that are suitable for this design of skirt. So now we can use, I have a pink chalk pencil and that would show up, or I could use the waterproof marker, because that would work as, that would wash off. So bear with me. Now the way to judge a hole's size is you take your button and you measure it, and then you measure the height of the button, and then you measure an extra 1/8 of an inch. So, you know, for today I'm guessing. So what I've got left with is very scientific, this, a bit of paper that tells me how long my buttonhole needs to be and how the interval of it. So now I need to adjust for hem allowance at the top, but I need one quite close to the top. So, and then I literally just line it up and do it like this. Now I could have folded the skirt in half and worked out the actual length of it and done it that way, but I didn't. It really depends. I'm never ever going to actually do up the bottom buttons, because the skirt would be too tight. I wouldn't be able to walk. But I'm going to have the buttonholes and the buttons sewn in. So the other adjustment that you should do is you should either mentally or physically, by actually marking it, is how far you want it from this seam of stitches. So we've sewn buttons before, I'm sure. I do have a buttonhole foot, though it is not necessary to have one of those. It's easier because you can then see this little pencil line that we've done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a few buttonholes. Perhaps I should have done it. I'll do one with the foot on, so that you know that you don't need any special equipment. If you've got these sets of stitches, which is the buttonhole, and then you'll have a little on your bottom, your bobbin dial, you'll have a buttonhole stitch as well. So literally switch that to buttonhole. Sorry if I'm boring everyone, but I do want to make it as conclusive as possible of how to do buttons. So I'm then going to turn the machine to the one stitch. I'm going to make sure it's lined up with the end of my pink line, and I'm going to allow the machine in its own time to come to the end of that pink line. I'm going to turn it to 2/4, and then I'm going to turn it to 3. Now when you turn this dial, make sure your needle's up, because it literally moves it from side to side. And I think once you've been sewing for a while, you can get quite lazy about, you know, where you place your needle and everything else. So I'm going back to 4. You see, I didn't check then that it was adjusted or not, and I'm just going to do a couple of stitches on the end. So, and then get your cotton caught in the back of your foot so you can't take it out. I'm just going to trim that there, and then it's a matter of a small pair of scissors or a thread picker. Now, in this tiny room there are 3 stitch pickers. Yes. And can I find one when I want one? No. So, let's check that you're in shot. And you are, yeah. So, it's very, I find it so easy to actually put it in front of the screen rather than put it in front of the actual camera. So all I've done is I've pushed that in there, in between the 2 lines of stitches, and then you just pull it and you have your buttonhole. Now always put a pin in the bottom. Even this canvas, it goes through like butter, it really does. So, you know, you don't want to just stick it in and then completely rip it off. Okay, well that's my next sewing job. I literally have to sit there and do my 10 buttonholes. So I'm going to switch you off. Oh, hello there. Literally, I haven't done anything. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make this video a 2-parter because it's already half an hour long. Now, I hope that's understandable. I want to give you all the information possible, but obviously, if it's longer than half an hour, you won't be able to download it. Okay, so yes, look out for part 2. All that's going to happen in part 2 is I'm going to have sewn my buttonholes, and I'm going to sew my waistband and my buttons on. Alright, thank you ever so much for watching. Do subscribe, do like, do keep an eye out for any future videos. It's always great fun to do these, and I hope you've enjoyed it as well. God bless.